Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, 320 Sim Pilots, and today we're taking a look at another Airbus flight guidance mode, the Expedite button. What does it mean to us as pilots on the A320? What don't we like about it and what do we like about it, and how is it used in the real world? As ever, I am a real world Airbus pilot, but everything today discussed is purely for your use in home simulation and not for any real world use, of course. It's just to give you some extra context on those home simulations. This is a mode I've had a few questions about. It actually ties in quite nicely with the Outstar video that I did a little while back, which I'll provide a link to, which will explain some of the vertical capture modes in the Airbus. But the Expedite button is something that's quite interesting, and we'll talk today about some of the tricks and traps of using it. So let's get started. So here we are on the flight deck, just departing from Milan Linate Airport, heading north up to Manchester, I think, on this route today. And I want to show you what the Expedite button does. Now, the button I'm talking about is sitting over here. It says EXPED, which stands for Expedite, of course. And it is a vertical guidance mode. So it's another mode for flying the aircraft vertically. Other modes would be open climb, open descent, vertical speed, flight path angle. These are all vertical modes. But the Expedite mode is quite simple. All it does is, obviously, as you can judge by the name, it expedites our climb or our descent. So if we want to climb really quickly, it is an option to press. And the guidance from Airbus is that it can be used if you need it for it's best for short-term applications, and I'll show you why. It's actually a button that I don't ever use. Not because it's banned, but because I don't particularly find it that useful, and I'll show you why. However, it is used by some pilots, and there'll be plenty of pilots, I'm sure, in the comments who will have used it day to day, and that's absolutely fine, of course. Put the engine anti-ice on because we're about to climb. We can see we're about to enter icing range as we climb in the clouds, so might as well have it ready. But yeah, so what does it do? Well, let's say we're at flight level 120. Air traffic says to us, okay, I can get you up to flight level 200, so climb now flight level 200, expedite through flight level 160, for example. That'd be a slightly unusual, but it does happen, sort of clearance. So what it means is they want us to get up to 200. They don't care about us reaching flight level 200 too much, but they are desperate for us to pass 160 as quickly as possible. It'll be because of conflicting traffic. They'll have calculated another airliner is crossing our path and they need us above it or below it or wherever at the right time. So I'm going to put in 200 into the window, and instead of doing any other mode, I'm just going to go boom, expedite, and there we go. We get thrust climb, expedite climb. Now, as soon as we do that, what the aircraft will do is effectively go into an open climb mode. So it's going to climb with climb thrust. So there you go, it's gone to climb thrust, hence thrust climb in the left-hand column. But the difference from open climb is the speed. It has automatically brought the speed right back to 197. You can see there, the magenta 197. What that is actually green dot speed. So whatever your current green dot speed is, it will go to that. So it doesn't actually matter that it's at 197. It will come whizzing back. So here's the first problem. It's not a very controlled mode, so it's great that I'm going to expedite through 160. Air traffic will be very happy. But those of you who've seen my Outstar video will remember that we're going to actually get a capture way too early now because we're only leveling off at 200. So you've got to be aware. You can't just blindly press expedite and then leave the airplane running at its own rate through 160. Today it's worked, but in the real aircraft, that would have captured, I think, any second now. It would already go into Outstar. And the problem there is you'll be stuck with this very high pitch attitude while it does the whole capture mode, and you could find yourself running out of speed. There you go, it's gone into Outstar. It does lower the nose, but slowly, and you see the speed is still reducing, and we're doing 4,000 feet per minute within 2 to go. So at these lower levels, Expedite is very effective. You did see there the very high rate of climb we got. Now, we are quite a lightweight today. That was probably a bit of an excessive rate, but you know, it is possible to reach very high rates of climb in the aircraft when you're going in these modes from quite a good position of high energy, i.e. that speed. So there we go. As I said, it uses green dot. Let's put it up to flight level 300, press it again, expedite, thrust climb, expedite climb, and it's back to targeting green dot. So why does it target green dot? Well, green dot is our minimum drag speed effectively. What it means is if we put the airplane at climb thrust and we get our speed back to that speed, there's the least drag, and therefore we should be getting the best vertical performance out of the aircraft. It's actually the best angle of climb, effectively, there is a slight difference between there is quite a big difference between best angle and best rate of climb. So this may not be the fastest way to climb up to where we're going, because watch what happens as we reach, let's put that up to 350. And what you're going to see now is we're reaching green dot and we've gone below it. So now that rate of climb is going to wash right off. So if we were using Expedite climb for a long period of time, this is what you'll end up in a situation of. We're at green dot now, we're doing 1500 feet per minute, nothing that exciting. So the great thing here is we are getting a good angle. So if there's a mountain in front of us, now you wouldn't use this to avoid a mountain, but if there was maybe a cloud or something like that, maybe you were trying to climb over some weather you didn't want to fly through, that maybe didn't look so nice out the window and you couldn't go around it for whatever reason. You know, these are some examples of where you might use this angle of climb. So now we've got a relatively normal rate of climb, but we're going quite slowly over the ground. So we are now climbing relatively to the ground at quite a good angle. If we were drawing a line, it'd be quite a upward line. However, we're doing it quite slowly, so it's not efficient, and it's certainly not our best rate of climb. Our best rate of climb will actually involve more forward speed, and then we'll get a higher vertical speed, and therefore we could climb up to flight level 350 quicker. So key little tidbit there. This climbing at green dot will give us our best angle over the ground, but it won't be the quickest way to get up to your cruise level. We never climb like this in a real aircraft. It's hideous because it is not efficient. It is slow, and you can imagine it will extend the flight time by quite a bit and also annoy air traffic control, so it's just not used. But there we go. It does a relatively good job when it gets back here, but you can see the risks of being back here, especially if we went into outstar or something like that and the aeroplane loses energy. It's quite a low energy state. But there we go. So that is Expedite in the climb. How do we get out of Expedite in the climb? Well, we can do whatever we want. If I was to just pull now 350, it'll go into open climb and revert back to the managed speed. So that works straight away. I could also, let's press Expedite again. There we go. I could also pull the vertical speed. There's basically a million ways to revert out of it. If you engage any other vertical mode, they'll override it. But whilst it's engaged, there you go, thrust climb, Expedite climb. Outstar would engage and automatically cancel out Expedite mode, but remember, Outstar is very difficult to override, as we saw in that other video. So there we go. That's all very well and good, and up we go. Something important to note, if you had speed limits on your departure or your arrival, let's say this Adari point had a 250 knot speed limit written next to it, this Expedite mode will ignore it. Not such an issue in the climb because obviously we're below the speed, but let's say there was a minimum speed, quite rare, but let's say it said you have to be doing at least 250 knots at Adari and you've pressed Expedite, it will now override it. Same for altitude constraints. If that said be below 140, but we put in a higher level and then pressed Expedite, it would ignore the altitude constraint. So it's ignoring all constraints now. It's doing what you've told it, which is expediting, which presumably is why Airbus put it in the first place. It is used for sort of relatively, not extreme situations, but more demanding situations where we want to climb the airplane right now or descend it right now. So that's what it's there for. So those are some of the features of climbing in it. So key things are, it's going to come back to green dot. It could give you a very high rate of climb if you start at high speed, but eventually you'll lose that energy and you'll be stuck in a situation like this. And something else to note that Airbus does say is that above flight level 250, it's really not that great because you're going to end up with this low vertical speed and the airplane's not very comfortable here. So this is not a great use of it. So above 250, this button in the climb is not so productive. So let's just put it back. Let's pull open climb and let it go back into its managed modes where it'll be much more efficient, much happier. But we are going to have to sit here for ages while it thinks about that. So hopefully there you've seen a few reasons why I don't use that button a lot. An alternative way to do it, if we were climbing in a normal sort of speed range, so we're still pretty slow, but if the airplane's climbing quite comfortably and normal and then suddenly air traffic asks you for a higher rate of climb, we'll just turn off the engine anti-ice. Let's say they say to me now, Expedite climb flight level 360. It's unusual for them to do that at the higher levels, but some controllers will. So we could do it from here as if we're accelerating. So all I would do is I'd go, okay, open climb, and then I'd pull the speed and wind the speed back. And this way we get that instant boost of vertical speed and up it goes, but I'm not going to have the airplane pitch the nose way up into the sky and go into outstar or anything silly like that. And if I decide that the airplane's still got enough energy as we're climbing like this, we can then wind back the speed a bit more, but it's unlikely, especially at high altitude, you're not going to come all the way back to green dot because it's a little bit daft. Now, that's not to say you mustn't, these are options available, but most people wouldn't up at these higher levels, because my big worry now is that we're going to outstart and the airplane keeps the nose way up there. Airbus is very lazy at putting the nose down, and I say lazy not in the sense it's actually lazy. I'm saying it in the sense that it's very cautious when lowering the nose. It does not want to apply negative G to the aircraft, so to get the airplane to lower the nose from a high pitch attitude like this, it will be very slow to do it, and therefore you could get yourself into trouble in turbulence or things like that, as we are experiencing now as we reach the Alps. And there you go. So being at green dot here is not very comfortable. So we'll put it back into all its normal managed modes. So now we've leveled off in the cruise, let's talk about the next obvious feature of the Expedite button, which is using it in the descent. How does that work and what modes will it engage? Well, it's again going to be another open descent in a form. It will go to thrust idle, Expedite descent mode, and what it will do is it will bring the engines obviously back to flight idle, and then it will lower the nose and accelerate at the maximum speed it can manage, which is programmed to be Mach 0.80, which then converts to 340 knots. As it gets lower down, because obviously right now we can't get to 340 knots because we are flying at a higher Mach number, so we're limited by that Mach number. So let's set that into the FCU. I can put in flight 100 and then straight into Expedite. That's fine. Thrust idle, Expedite descent, and you'll see the amber dot is sitting up there at 0.80. There is a bit of a buffer between the target speed and the overspeed. So here you go, we're at thrust idle, Expedite descent. It's all looking good. Engines come back to idle and it will lower the nose and we'll get a high rate of descent out of it. So this is going to be the quickest way down. Now this is the best way and quickest way to descend because we're getting the most drag out of the airplane by going at the highest speed. So this is a very quick way to get down. You can't get quicker unless we start adding these speed brakes to it. So we could also use speed brakes, and there's nothing to stop you. We could increase this rate of descent. If I put those speed brakes out to half, which is the most you'll get, I mean, even if you set it there in the real aircraft, you'll only get half in the A320 with the autopilot in. But there we go, and now we're getting crazy vertical speeds, 6,000 feet per minute. And you'll notice that target speed, 0.8, is increasing all the time, because as we descend, the Mach number will naturally go up, and then as it reaches 340, it will stop. Again, this is a very rugged sort of mode, and there is a risk here of it overspeeding. If we're in the descent as we are now, and we suddenly find the wind, let's take it off live, and let's go to a wind layer up here, and we're heading south, so I put it to south, and we suddenly find there's an increase in the wind of, let's add 20 odd knots. Oh look, all of a sudden we're overspeeding, and that could easily happen in the real aircraft. Wind speed changes of 10-20 knots can happen quite easily. So yeah, that's a reason not to use it in the descent. Another example would be this. Look, we've had a sudden reduction and now the airspeed is low, so it's going to keep lowering that nose to frankly a ridiculous rate of descent. But there we go. So let's get those speed brakes in, and down it goes. And there is a risk here of it overshooting as well. The Airbus will do its best, but again, any wind changes or turbulence and you could find overspeeds. But you'll see now that Mach 0.80 has changed to 340 knots. And there it goes, overshooting. Oh, we need to put the autopilot back in, that would be why. And it's going to put up, yeah, but even so, with the autopilot in, it's possible for it to overshoot. But there we go. So that is Expedite mode in descent. It targets the highest speed of 0.80 or 340 knots and thrust idle, and down we go. This mode will also ignore constraints, speed limits. It will ignore all of that, so you are very much overriding most things. It's quite a powerful mode. But again, using it short term is most likely just to start a descent, but using it at high altitudes is very risky for the overspeed risk, and using it at lower altitudes maybe, but just again probably for short times before engaging another mode. Again, very easy to do. If I pull that open descent 290, I could pull vertical speed, loads of different ways to go to it, and of course to return to it we can just press Expedite. There we go. So that's all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope it's been useful for you. Just a few little bits of real world feedback, hopefully, for those buttons that you may not be too sure about when we actually use them. Again, this has all just been my sort of observations and my preference, really. So there'll be plenty of people who use that button differently, I'm sure. And it's interesting to note that some airlines actually disable it. It is an option on the Airbus, the Expedite button. It is not a requirement to have installed, but it's something that is available, and you know, I think a lot of operators do have it, but some do block it out or turn it off, or don't order it at all. There'll be plenty more live streams and videos to come on the channel. As I said, September is proving to be quite a busy month for me, but we'll be getting back to normal in October and onwards. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all again on our live streams and videos. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye.